Live local, love local, support local. Local is lekker. These are all such wonderful feel-good notions, but for me the sad reality is that for most South Africans these sentiments are just catchy buzzwords that we throw around during our Bryside banter, or we put on our social media profiles because it sounds cool, but we do that as we hit pay on another Temu order. I'm Marius Roberts. Joining me in studio to continue our Real Talk conversations are the heads of two companies that are massively invested in local production, and both with a long-standing and very proud South African heritage. So it is great to welcome into our Investec studios. I mean, can I call you the boss? I mean, Martina, you and I have worked together for so long over the years, but obviously chairperson and managing director of Volkswagen Group Africa, Martina Biene. Nice to have you here.
Call me the boss, please.
I like the boss. It works. Lubin, Ozoux, obviously CEO of Dunlop South Africa. We've also got a very colourful and exciting past. We've worked together on some cool projects as well. So thank you for joining us in the studio.
Thank you.
The reason that I've got you in on this discussion is a topic that I know both of you are massively driven by, and that is loving local and supporting local. Companies that have over 50 years of manufacturing in South Africa. I think you got 51 or 52 years. We celebrated 50 last year.
For our current Ladysmith factory, we are on just reaching 52 years. But we've been in South Africa for 122 years.
That's it's crazy. Martina, what are you at with VW at the moment?
74 years.
Yeah.
All invited next year, 75th anniversary.
Well done.
Exciting.
It's a proudly South African story, but I think the landscape is very different to what it was back then when these businesses were set up. Before we get into what I think is probably a couple of challenges with South Africa, let's be positive and talk about what we love about the country, because both of you French reunion, you German, but I mean you wear your South African heritage proudly on your arm with your tattoo. Both of you are really passionate and committed to South Africa. Lubin, for you, what makes South Africa so amazing?
Look, I had the opportunity to come to South Africa in the 90s when the change was happening at the end of the apartheid. I did my high school at that time here, and I was part of that initial journey and fell in love with the country then. After studying, I moved overseas and worked overseas for quite a number of years. And then when we got married, we had kids, and we were thinking, where do we want to bring up our kids? There was no other place in South Africa where we wanted our kids to bring up, because we just love the people. I think the landscapes, everything that you can do here is unmatched. And
quality of life.
And I think Martina can potentially say it, that she's worked in other countries as well. Often we compare and we think the grass is greener on the other side, but it really isn't.
Well, you know why it is. More crap on that side. But Martina, for you, I mean, you've had 2 stints here in South Africa, and I mean, I referenced the tattoo. You really have done such a big job in embracing our culture. As a German, trying to learn everything about what makes South Africa so unique. What is it? Have you figured it out yet?
So it's actually also my 3rd stint. So when Lubin was mentioning it, I did an internship in South Africa in 1997 in my previous life as a theologian. So that was first time.
Wow, it's quite a shift.
In Cape Town at UCT at Anglican Student Society. But that was a first time safari. So I think I fell in love with the country then. Also found it quite interesting from a political perspective. But what I basically love almost everything. I think we come to the very little things I don't love. Landscape was mentioned, the people, the food, the wine. Not to forget about the wine. I love the boer maak 'n plan attitude. That's for specifically in this business environment. That helps a lot. I've recently, for example, been to Venda, and I learned how to bow. On my cultural journey, I'm getting into anything.
You've taken it all. I mean, and I think that's what, for me, often, we get to sit with MDs and CEOs of companies that don't have that love or that invested interest in it, and they don't ever quite get the culture, because they might be on a 3-year tenure and then they leave again. But you guys have kind of seen the sweet spot of manufacturing in South Africa in the old days when the companies were set up here. But that landscape I mentioned earlier has changed big time. What makes manufacturing and running business in South Africa so challenging? Lubin, for you?
Look, I think we are far away from everything, which makes it a great opportunity and a great challenge, right? challenge in terms of logistics, supply chains, expertise sometimes is a challenge. So that is a piece. Obviously, the electricity, the water, the infrastructure, all of these things are well documented. That does put pressure on manufacturing in terms of being able to achieve the cost level that you want. But the opportunities is, I think South Africans are very loyal. South Africans, really want to support local. Not everybody can, but everybody, wants to. Everybody is proud of being South African. And I think this creates great opportunities. And we have Africa right next door, which also, we will talk about it, I think, a bit later, that needs a bit of work, but also represents a big opportunity.
Martina, for you, what's your challenge now from the Volkswagen Group perspective, dealing with what's happening from a local perspective? I mean, Lubin, I'm going to get you back on that point where you said South Africans would love to support local, but they can't always from a cost perspective. So that's an interesting discussion too. But what are the challenges that VW is facing at the moment to stay in South Africa?
So initially from our setup, I think Volkswagen saw an opportunity 74 years ago to say we go local for local, domestic markets. And then there was a point in time when we were building 11 models, which is completely inefficient. It was more assembling than building for the domestic market. And that was very wise, and there was also a very good decision from South African government. So how do we get bigger business into South Africa was like, South Africa needs to get ready for exports. Of course, that then also could only happen with the end of apartheid, really. So there was a very good automotive program put in place encouraging exports because the domestic market remains too small to sustain 7 or soon 8 manufacturers. So everyone was kind of guided also into exports. And this is for us now becoming difficult because Europe is changing to electric vehicles, which is one of our most prevalent export destinations. There is not really a policy in place for the domestic market for South Africa to also move towards electric vehicles. It also might not make a lot of sense. And now, when we pitch an idea, my biggest competition is not my 8 colleagues, or my biggest competition is first of all internally another 110 Volkswagen plants, and they all have good ideas where Volkswagen could spend money. So now I must come, and I want to come and tell them why it is good to spend money here. And then we come into what Lubin just said. Okay, cost of labor is still an advantage, but let's see how wage negotiations go. Because now we also compare with other destinations in terms of labor costs, like China or India, which probably wasn't that much 30 years ago. Infrastructure, I've got still my generators on site. Yes, load shedding got better, but now we've got breakdowns, power station outages. The infrastructure is not in place, so additional costs on that one. Logistic challenges in terms of flying parts,
raw materials,
and if that all adds up to kind of, are we competitive in terms of manufacturing cars here? And the competition landscape has broadened because now, as I said, I compete with cars coming from India, I compete with cars coming from China, and sometimes it feels like, unfortunately, this huge advantage from the past is not there anymore if we just sum it up.
Lubin, it's the same for you though, because I mean, tires, cars, but the process is the same. Import, export, local market isn't big enough. You competing as Dunlop Tires South Africa with all the other markets that are saying, hey, we want to make that tire here and there, and maybe they get better support from governments to make their production story more cost effective. Is that a reality?
Yes, I think it is a reality. So if you look at pure economics, I think 100% we are in competition with other factories, and we need to be competitive, in terms of where we import tires from. So, for example, we benchmark ourselves against Thailand, and that's our main competition that we look at. I think we need to also understand that, I assume also VW, but us also, is a big reason we are here is our responsibility to the community that we serve, and we take that very seriously. So if it was pure economics, the question might be a bit different. So there's a huge social responsibility here in terms of investing, in terms of being stable. So we manufacture in the town of Ladysmith. We are very cognizant that if we had to leave the town of Ladysmith, there will be no industry left there, and it will become a big disaster. So I think both play a big role.
I'm glad you brought that point up because, I mean, Martina, I remember when Thomas Schaefer was in your position here, and now obviously he's your big boss. He took trade unions to Australia because at that point, I think 2015, 2016, they went, we're going import only, and showed them the impact on those towns. Kariega, Uitenhage, Ladysmith, I mean, so heavily dependent. And it's not just how many people are employed directly in your plants, but it's the knock-on effects, the other suppliers that are all linked. So for me, not having manufacturing is like, it's the worst possible outcome for South Africa, and I don't think South Africans quite appreciate that. I don't think they realize how important supporting local really is.
So one thing that was during COVID time. So we did something like drive local. Aha, double meaning.
Yeah.
Drive
Did you
local.
think of that?
Sort of. Drive local, and we realized that South African consumers in the car industry don't know what is really local. They know Volkswagen is a local brand, but they don't somehow. But that we really manufacture two models here, which are not only assembled, but which are deeply localized with 50-60% local content with the suppliers. So that was, to me, quite I thought everyone knows. Everyone is proud of what happens in South Africa. So that was the first wake-up call to say, oh no, it's not known. And so I think we should elaborate more on that one and push that one more towards South African societies to be proud of. To what you said, local is lekker. What I find it sometimes with government and municipalities is a bit, and we employ 4,000 people directly, and if you look at our suppliers, it's like 50,000. But sometimes it's only about new investments. So the way it's kind of to run a business with 4,000 people and the 50,000 suppliers or people being employed at the suppliers, sometimes I find it's not really valued. Only in the last 11 years, we've invested 13.4 billion rand to run. And then how many new jobs did you create? Is it almost zero?
That's to keep the
but
jobs.
I managed to keep these jobs in a quite difficult business environment for 13 years now, or 11 years more, to upgrade facilities, yes, the new product is also part of the new announcement, but sometimes I wish please also make sure that you keep what you've got.
I mean, you guys went through a lot of tough times last year in terms of unrest and staff turnover and that type of stuff and strikes, which, I mean, again, you obviously want to give your staff the best, but what that does, the knock-on effect for that as well. You know, if you're not producing tires, your factory isn't operational, that's a massive stress point. But it can't be an easy position to be in because you're right, not everyone sees, oh, I've got a job. How do you change that outlook within your workforce? I mean, that can't be easy.
Yeah, I think first, people are people, right? We've got to understand that people they look after themselves first, their family first. That's all of us at the end of the day. And we've got to also, when we talk about labor relations, which what you talked about, it's never one side. It's always two sides. And although we had some challenges, it was in 2023 where we had some quite challenges. These challenges were an opportunity to actually bring us together and to move forward. And actually now, we are very much aligned in terms of the labor and how to move forward and understanding of the situation. But irrelevant of now people and whether they are grateful to have a job or not, what we realized, we didn't do a good job at communicating. And I think to Martina's points about Drive Local, we had this homegrown campaign that we run as tire manufacturers in South Africa. We weren't very good also at showing people, our contributions. And actually it took that unfortunate event where a few small businesses eventually closed because they weren't getting the revenue from us indirectly, that people started to realize, really the impact. And that's on us. We need to do a better job at communicating that to the public.
But it is interesting because I know with SATMC, that's what you guys have been pushing in a big way. And maybe it is. We take it for granted because we work in the space that the consumer out there knows these tires are manufactured here, this car is made here, but maybe they don't. But at the end of the day, you said they're going to look after themselves first. And it always comes down to the bottom line. And that for me is what is the challenge, because the local content isn't always more affordable. So what do we do? Shouldn't there be some system in place where maybe we are subsidized on local content, that it is more cost effective than a competitive brand that's imported? Is that possible? I mean, other countries do that.
So I'll talk from the tire side, right? So I think first, no schemes need to be in place if we are not competitive at a certain level. So first we need to show, I mentioned earlier we are against Thailand, that we can be competitive against it to do it, right? If I look at the tire industry and where we are being hurt heavily is on the Chinese imports that are coming in, right? And even though we had an anti-dumping duty that was implemented a little while ago, the price now of Chinese tires is lower than before the anti-dumping, right? So that's the reality. So how do we now, before we put measures, there needs to be certain things in place to implement the measure. That's my key learning is if you don't have, your customs, your borders, your systems in terms of applying these levies, there's no point in implementing them.
It's just fluff.
No, because you're going to have a few people that do it properly and that will go and they'll be uncompetitive. And then you have some other people that will become more competitive. So that's not a fair playing field, which is the aim of the anti-dumping, is to create a fair playing field. So I think that is a challenge that we need to really think about. And I think when I look at tires specifically, we talk about dumping. But dumping by principle is you got a factory, you make a certain volume, and then you got your over volume that you dump into a country. Yeah. What we are seeing in tires is not a dumping, is more of a highly subsidized industry in China because they want to own that industry globally, right? And then they go to the markets and they penetrate and they end up killing local industry. And then they will eventually own the market, and then afterwards, I assume they stop subsidizing, and the pricing will go back up, right? That will be sort of my thinking of how it would flow. So, how do we address that? Yeah. Is it now a government that needs to make a call as to how do we become competitive as an industry against that, and do we keep it or not?
But what I so to your point earlier on when you were mentioning the communities and that the importance of also the companies taking responsibility in the communities, and I think that's what almost every South African company does, and that comes with additional investments as well, not only with keeping the corporate social investment initiatives and so on and so forth, as one part. And I think we do so much more than any imported tire brand or car brand, which comes with a cost. And I'll also love to do that. We're definitely doing it with full steam ahead, and we want to make an impact, not only tick boxes. But that comes with additional costs. So I would, in a way, find it fair if this would be rewarded in a way. And I'm not saying protect us against imports, but I'm rather saying, to your point, incentivize or acknowledge the things local manufacturers are doing.
I suppose it's like you look at all the stuff that's been going on the last couple of weeks in America, and it's not to get political here, it doesn't matter what side of the fence you sit on. The idea to protect the local is a noble one and is a good one. Whether it's implementing tariffs or whatever it might be, is an interesting discussion to have, because maybe that is what needs to happen in our country to protect our industry, because we know the knock-on effect if suddenly we're not financially viable anymore to operate here. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm probably less on the protectionist side, because that would that's a ripple-on effect, and then the next one puts also duties in, and then the next one makes higher tariffs, and then I think we'll all lose at the very end. But I'm rather and South Africa had a good program how to incentivize domestic or local industry, and in the automotive space. And for me, it just needs a revision because some of these things are not in place anymore. For example, a very small domestic market, which is really bad. So we generate these rebates, for example, in the automotive space for exporting cars, which I can't utilize because of a very small domestic market. So if we could just simply revise a bit this program, the South African Automotive Master Plan 35 jointly, and if we really could acknowledge that local manufacturing is doing more for communities, for the country, for and rather work on that to make it more attractive, to probably cover some additional costs, or to make it more attractive for a consumer to buy a local product.
Yeah. And I think just convince consumers of that in their daily process. It's not just big items like cars and tires, but everything that you do on a daily basis is think about that. What am I buying? This coffee. Am I supporting an American brand, or is there somebody that's involved in that whole process? It's an interesting point to consider. So there's steps that you would like to see, just out of interest. Not that I expect a handshake from the two of you, but I mean, is it not a case of saying, okay, right, so we're making Vivo. What size tire do we need on Vivo? And then it's a case going, right, so who's the local manufacturer? Can we not work together to secure that business, or does that happen already?
Yeah, so I think before that, I just want to comment on the protectionism or not, or how to move forward. Yeah. I think it's an important. I think we have a big advantage here. If you look at what the US did, it was one person or a small group of people making a decision. I think the advantage we have in South Africa is actually we have bodies and we have discussions, quite good discussions between governments and the different manufacturing bodies that are happening. So these are already in place, and these are discussions that are evolving, right? So the implementation, the speed of implementation we need to work on. But I think we have there already a lot of discussions, a lot of plans that are coming together. So it is, I think, in a better place in terms of sustainability to just doing, just tariffs and then exactly you pass it on. There is a bit more thought and a bit more thinking behind it, and those are happening. So that's a good part on that.
Because otherwise that's just window dressing. So it's gonna be a stopgap, but it's not really going to solve the problem down the line.
And then to your second point about the cars and the tires. I think and I think Martina mentioned, local content 50-60%. So a manufacturer, and the same with us in terms of a tire manufacturer, we go out of our way to try and buy local, everything that we can. And I'm sure it's the same with Martina. With us, everything that can be local, we buy locally. And we actually, even what we don't get locally, we try to put together different structures to try and be able to make it locally in the future. So this is a huge drive, and I think it's happening from the top, the OEMs, down to every single manufacturer the way down, and there is strong talk there. But at the same time, it can't be at the cost of quality.
Sure.
Because we have to deliver our tires the same quality as anywhere in the world, even better, and the same on the car side. Right?
See, that's the heritage you talk about, but it almost feels like with certain policies in South Africa, we've created a middleman mentality, where it's like, here's an item, I'm not going to make it, I'm just going to add a charge and sell it on.
But our industry in general we love to localize. Specifically in countries like South Africa, if we can, we localize because you save a lot of logistics costs which are on the parts. Labor is quite affordable in South Africa. So if I've got my supplier right next door or in our supplier park building, and now comes the difficulty. We are not an easy industry in terms of quality and scale and mass. And so it's sometimes a bit difficult for small and medium enterprises, I would say. But if quality is right, if economies of scale can be achieved in that plant, we'll love local production.
And just as mentioned, I think you mentioned that middleman piece. Yeah. I don't see it in the automotive sector. I think we've gone through those stages that now proper business people are empowered to do their businesses. And I think we are all very involved with the supplier and managing them to make sure that this is not done. So I think I'm quite confident in saying that. Yeah.
And it's nice because I wanted to touch on just the quality of our facilities, but you guys have brought it up. You importing, you exporting. So the quality of what is produced here, I've been to both of your facilities. I mean, it's state of the art, and that investment is massive, and that's that legacy that I talk about. If I drive off off the showroom in your car with your tires, I know what I'm getting. It's a guaranteed peace of mind that goes with it. We spoke a bit right up front, Lubin. You talk about Africa, and I mean, there are massive opportunities. I've always looked at it, I've kind of gone, yeah, we're sending raw materials to the tip of Africa, and then we're sending everything back to Europe. Surely there's opportunity into Africa. I know if you guys from VW, you've done a lot of stuff in Rwanda and those type of things. Has that become a real shift? Because it kind of feels like that becomes local content, because we African after all.
So for us, and speaking Volkswagen now, I think I'm speaking automotive industry, but at least we have definitely embraced that Africa is a huge opportunity as a new car destination, also as a new car industry. So it's quite specifically that huge portion of sub-Sahara Africa has not a very largely developed new car market. It's like it was 111,000 new cars in 2023 in this entire area.
It's crazy.
Which is like huge, which is massive. But it's not because there's no need for mobility, but it is because of a lot of imported used cars from all across the world. So, and what we see now, so African Continental Free Trade Agreement coming in place, creating the biggest free trade area in the world, if it is implemented as it has been signed. Automotive is one of the key pillars, and you see more and more countries gaining interest in how we want to be part of an industry. We want to industrialize, because that's finally what creates jobs. That's including then a supplier structure. We don't want to be, as you say, the dumping ground anymore. So it's currently a lot of policy work still. So I talk a lot to governments who are interested in inviting us or inviting the African Association of Automotive Manufacturers to consult on how do we get industry there. And surprisingly, we won't build 54 plants for Volkswagen in every country. So a lot of this work is also, okay, how do we create a win-win for as many countries as possible? Or how could that potentially look like? And then you've got the likes of Cote d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast, or Ghana having rubber. So, okay, which unfortunately gets shipped elsewhere, Turkey or wherever. But so is there parts for raw material beneficiation in a quality that we can
instead of buying it back as an end product, you're creating an end product.
So getting raw material beneficiation, which could play a role, or which definitely can play a role on this continent. Then there will be, of course, also car manufacturing countries. Then there will be probably component manufacturing countries. But to map that all out, to me, it's a huge opportunity, and I see a lot of traction and interest from a lot of governments. It comes with a ban of used cars or a staggered ban of used cars, because otherwise you won't create a local market at a size where it is interesting for one or two to come and manufacture. Yeah. Because we need economies of scale in the entire industry. So, but for us it's a huge opportunity, and I'm really looking forward to hopefully be part of the industrialization in the automotive space.
You've got a big smile on your face. I mean, you brought it up. I'm imagining that's a vision for you guys here in South Africa too.
Of course, it's a little bit different. So industrialization is a difficult one at times, just purely size and volume. It's difficult to industrialize in each country. But I think what we have realized is the government have done their job in setting the platform. Now businesses need to do the work to make it a win-win for it. Because if you think about tires now, if I go to a country like Cameroon that import all the tires, they get a duty on the tires. Now, if they implement the African Continental Free Trade Agreement for tires, they'll just lose this customs duty. So it's a win for us, it's a lose for them, right? So how do we create those win-wins? So for us, in terms of, we don't have the industrialization opportunity, so we are working hard at finding opportunities to import raw materials more. So you talked about the rubber in Ivory Coast. So last year, as a manufacturing body, two of us already started buying our natural rubber from Ivory Coast, bringing it down. And the idea is to show, look, we are doing it, and we try and constantly find all the opportunities. We have one we're working on with Egypt at the moment. We're trying to find some in East Africa to also show how we can create that win-win. But it's really nothing now. The key for South Africa to move that forward is for businesses to not wait for governments. There's for businesses to create those opportunities, those win-win situations that it can really, that the countries will want to move forward with it. So it's really in our court.
The thing for us, it's we jointly, and I think we need government. we need to find these people, these companies who do the beneficiation from whatever, because we don't know. When we buy, there's 5 or 6 years between the mine or the cocoa, the rubber. What is it? Is it a tree?
Rubber plantation.
The rubber plantation. So there is that industry which is not automotive, and we need to find, and that's an opportunity. But we jointly need to find those who do something with the mined copper, put it in copper rods until then a company does wiring harnesses. Until then we buy the wiring harnesses or the tire or the whatever. So that's for me a joint action we should undertake to find companies and tell them how good this investment could look like.
Because I mean, for me, it sounds like that's how you future-proofing local production is by focusing on that African market. But there are challenges that go there too, because again. The Chinese want to play in that space, and they do, and they've got good relationships with governments, and it more is let's take the raw material, so we've got it, and sell you an end product back. So, the end goal there isn't looking after and instilling production locally. It's about taking what they can out of that area. So that must be a challenge to get that across the line.
Yeah, so I think for us, Africa is, for us, the future. When Sumitomo bought Dunlop, it was to focus on Africa, right? That's the idea. And I think the regulations in Europe and the US are moving a bit further apart and are changing in terms of tires. So it's difficult, to look at other markets outside of Africa. So Africa for us, actually it makes it a bit easier for us because it gives us a clear focus of what we need to do. I think when you start looking at too many things, then you lose. So for us, we're very clear, Africa is our playing field, and that's where we need to play. And that's where the opportunity is for us.
Before we wrap things up, it's always so relevant to talk about, the environment and being conscious and where we go. And it's probably important that we tell that story from an industry perspective as well, that not only are you looking after the local communities and the people that you employ, but also the environment that you're operating in, because not all markets operate like that. So I know both of you have invested heavily in terms of making sure that you guys are sustainable with an uncertain power grid and that type of stuff. But what sort of steps have you taken and put in place just to future-proof business from an environmentally conscious perspective?
Same to the community work we do. We also mean it. So we want to do responsible manufacturing. Globally, Volkswagen wants to be carbon neutral by 2050, and that talks to everything in the business, to manufacturing, including the cars and so on and so forth. Depending on pending EV policy in South Africa, we might skip the car part, but our goal is to manufacture carbon neutral, so the production process is carbon neutral by 2030, which is 5 years from now. And we've invested a lot in PVs and solar panels for electricity. We are a 3-shift operations. I didn't manage to switch on the sun the entire day, so we also now look into wind wheeling, contract wind wheeling to really be off the grid. We looking for or to be use carbon neutral energy power. We don't have a solution as of now for our paint shop. So a paint shop has a lot of ovens in it, and that is run by gas. So I'm hoping for any biogas facility or some with reliable supply somewhere in our area that we can procure that from there. But we also do a lot of biodiversity waste. First of all, is always reduce the energy consumption, reduce the water consumption, reduce the waste, and then go into recycling, go into offsetting with clean energy. And we're doing biodiversity. It's my productions director's favorite, to plant the speckworms all across South Africa. Now the plumbagos have joined. You put it in your salad as well.
Yeah. It's lovely. I suppose you're going to tell us what you do from a Dunlop perspective, but I suppose tyres also have a bit of a bad rep in a way, because what happens with the tyres once they're done, and I know there's policy in place, but it isn't always implemented correctly, and that kind of ends up landing on your lap and it's not your fault.
So by the way, spec boom, my wife is also on a mission. In my own garden, we've got spec boom growing up everywhere.
It's a fantastic plant. We can go there for the next 20 minutes.
But yeah, so I think tyres, it is a difficult one, because what happens to the tyre afterwards, and there's good opportunities of what can be done with a tyre, a scrap tyre going forward. The challenge we haven't really been able to, so there's a levy that gets paid for a waste tire, to collect the waste tires and then to actually do something with them. The challenge is we've been sort of going forward and back with government in terms of finding, the right solutions and where to invest this money in to really, turn these into opportunities. Because depending on what you do with it, you can use it from roads, you can use it
Building.
To building, you can use it also parts of it. You can, if you're done properly, you can use it to make new tires. So you can create the loop properly. So there's many opportunities that can be done there. At the moment, a lot of it is being sold, so it's actually being shipped to other countries that manage it. So, again, the shipment of it creates even more.
And what happens to that side is someone else's problem.
Challenges on there. So there's a lot of opportunities there, and we need to be a bit more aggressive in terms of making sure we see those through. Because if you have a aerial view of some of these where tires are being stored, it's quite a scary sight. Not a good one.
You guys got your crystal balls here. To wrap
I use dice normally.
To wrap up, just both of you, thoughts on the future of automotive industry and manufacturing, understanding how the landscape has changed in terms of what is a normal job going to be. People are so reliant on AI and robots and. But there's still a pushback to tangible stuff, which is a good thing. How do we see the industry changing for you as an example in the manufacturing process here, and for VW as well? Lubin, let's start with you.
Yeah, so I think you started with South Africans make a plan.
Yeah.
I think South Africans will make a plan and they'll find a way to see these through. We might go through some challenges on the way, but I think South Africans are very resilient and they will find ways to make it work. Even if not, we might not take the most straightforward path, but we'll find a way to really do it. I think it's if I look forward, AI. In AI, what we say to all our employees is nobody gets left behind. And what we are trying to encourage everybody is to say, look, if you have a job and you embrace AI, you have a great future.
Yeah.
If you have a job and you don't embrace it, you will get left behind. So we want to not leave anybody behind, and we have quite a few programs at the moment going on to get everybody to start embracing and looking at opportunities in there. And I think if we do that, then you in your job, you can contribute so much more and secure your job. So that's sort of our way of thinking. And, then we can really potentially create a lot of opportunities if we do that.
It's interesting because most people would go, well, there's certain jobs that will be redundant because AI can do that. Not in the manufacturing process, but the administration and that type of thing. So it's cool that you're going down that route to kind of encourage people to understand it and work with it to make themselves more attractive from a work perspective. So, I mean, it's whether we like it or not. We don't. I know for me personally, I'm not a fan because like the stuff that we do, producing content and at the end of the day, there's a value that comes with the tangible, but it's and we've got to figure out how to make it work for us. So it's a very nice idea that you guys have embarked on. Your future, throwing the dice crystal ball, what do you see?
So I mean, as much we could have already automatized much more than we've done, because manufacturing is also we could, if you look in a German plant and if you look into our plant, it's there's much more manual labor. Which
I saw the Porsche 911 production line. I mean, just robots.
But that was a deliberate decision to do so.
To protect.
Of course, it still must remain a business case, and as I said, labor costs are good in South Africa, but also because we wanna play it responsibly. So we could have done that. We haven't done that, and I don't think that there's AI anytime soon replacing manufacturing here. But you said so as well. We are embracing AI. It does a lot of things, very good things already now in terms of condition monitoring, for example, of our tools, that the press is not running too hot and needs to be replaced, or a tool in the press or die in the press. We have a road test predictor of cars. Do they need to be tested, or can they just like offline? And there's a lot of AI things we start implementing. We also trying to replace my volume dice future projection with a bit of AI insights into the volume planning. And I also think the industry will find a way. So we can see that already now, a switch from, for example, ownership to address affordability issues to usership. So I think there is ways our industry will nicely develop with all the tools, not against.
That's for me, it's just a nice way to park the conversation, because with the two of you, I know there'll always be straight talk, which I think our listeners and viewers really value, but it's also just your commitment, not only as companies, but also individuals in looking after South Africa. And I know in personal ways, both of you do a lot of stuff in terms of securing the love for local and supporting of local as well. So thank you very much for your time and for joining us. And I think just to wrap up for you guys as well, I mentioned it earlier, it's just we need to just be more conscious as consumers in the steps that we take on a daily basis. Not only do we need to be more efficient in terms of how we process things and work with our environment that we live in, but I think most importantly, think about the thing that you're buying. Think about the thing that you're consuming. Where does it come from, and what is the impact for our local environment? Try and support local in everything you do. Definitely live local and love local. It's a great country. See you guys soon.